I'm Mendy Stoll, and I'm here with Joe Fiore of Republic Hospitality. I'm super excited for you to hear Joe's story and to hear about what he's doing and to hear about the company. So, Joe, thank you so much for hopping on and joining us at the Seat Suite.
It is my pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Well, you and I had a little conversation before, and I had a chance to learn about you, but I would love for our listeners to know more about your background and who you are and how you came to the journey where you are today.
I'd be more than happy to share, and there's quite a bit to talk about. My background is nothing special, but it's unique. And I came up through a family run business. My career has had many pivots, and pivot is a critical word. It's probably what's been the most consistent throughout my career is that I've had many pivots. And I've been everything from a DJ to a college professor to an envelope salesman, even. I used to struggle with being a jack of all trades and an expert of none, so to speak. But what it's actually done has led me to this unique position as CEO of Republic Hospitality. And I truly believe the only reason I can handle this job is because I've had this unique set of experiences that now allow me to deal with the massive array of things that I deal with now on a daily basis.
It's so interesting. A lot of times what I find is when people do different things out throughout their career, there's always a common thread. There's always a common skill set or thread, even though they're doing different things. What was that for you?
The common thread was it's going to sound cheesy, but it was hard work and doing what others were not willing to do. And that's always kind of been a thread for me is I am always willing to be the last one up, the first one there, pick up the broom when no one else would. And that started very young. And now I'm almost inclined to do it regularly. I have kids and everything is kind of that way. But when I was younger, let's call it in my 20s, while everyone else would choose, let's go out tonight, I was actually working. And I was a DJ for about 25 years. And while it sounds like a very fun, glamorous job, and it is, there are those moments that you're struggling. You're there with two people on a dance floor. It's a Sunday night. It's a boring location, whatever the case may be. But I was working, and I learned work ethic. And that carries through. So the common thread, I guess, would be work ethic and doing what others are not willing to.
It's so interesting because I think that's a sign of true leadership is being willing to do every level of the job. It really is. It's a leadership by example mentality. So I love that you're saying, now you're the CEO of Republic Hospitality and you're saying, I will pick up the broom. I'm going to do what's needed. Certainly your role requires so much more, but I love that you're willing to take the leadership role of doing anything that's necessary. That's very cool. And
You
it's a
know,
good example.
it
But you're also a professor.
I am, and it's interesting. You're talking about doing everything. 5 minutes ago, I was just putting a TV up, and you can't really do this job unless you have done every other job that serves up to it. And I can't. I hate when I hear people say, "Oh, go take care of that. It's only going to take 5 minutes," and I know that that person's never done that job because I know that it doesn't take 5 minutes. And so when I ask someone to do something, I will never ask anyone to do anything that I haven't done. And not because I want to just say that, it's because that's the only way you know how the thing needs to get done, what level of intensity it needs, what level of detail it needs. And so the role I play now is a support tool. I never tell an employee what to do. I ask what their opinion is and I ask them what they need to get it done. And that's a very different thing. And I see leaders many times that are directive. It's go do this instead of saying, what do you think about doing this? And what do you need to get it done? Going into the professor role, that's all that is. I'm not telling students what to do. I'm almost asking them questions more often than not, asking them, what is it that you want to get out of this class? What is it that you don't understand? And what tools do you need to grasp the concept? So in both of those roles that I play as a professor and as the CEO of Republic Hospitality, they run in parallel, I guess is what I'm saying.
It's so and what you're describing to me is so clearly manager versus leader. So manager tells you what to do, leader helps you become a better version of yourself. And so I love that you go to the employees and you say, well, how do you think that should be accomplished? Okay, what tools? Because they're the ones doing the job. They know typically the best. And I think it creates loyalty too when those employees know that you are empowering them. That's the leadership piece, right? You're empowering them to do their job rather than telling them how to do their job. The manager versus leader. So that's such a great distinction that you're talking about. And how did you come to Republic Hospitality? I find that really interesting too.
It's been a wild pivot. Again, that word pivot keeps coming up. I moved to Charleston, South Carolina about 5 years ago with my family. I was in the very fortunate position where I had sold all the pieces of business that I had in Chicago, was able to hit the reset button in my life, and I wanted to go into the nonprofit world. And so I did. One stop along the way was working for my fraternity, believe it or not. I actually helped run the real estate arm of the Sigma Chi International Fraternity. And that was an amazing experience, but I was traveling a great deal. As my kids were born, I needed another pivot. And because I had this wild experience of business and entrepreneurship, the Medical University of South Carolina came calling. And what they were forming was something called a tech transfer office. And the name of it was called the Zucker Institute. What it was a way to get new inventions out into the world to help people. What better thing to do than that? And what they needed is somebody that wasn't a scientist, which I am far from it. What they needed was somebody who had business acumen. And so my job literally was to work with the scientists to take their inventions and get them out into the world via a license or a startup business. And I played that role for quite a bit. Now, my personality type just lends me to being outside of an office. I like to be around people. I'm an A type personality. And so the job was great, but it just wasn't my personality. Incidentally, my wife works for the Charleston Chamber of Commerce. And as she was out doing what she does, which is phenomenal for the community, she had run into my predecessor, the CEO of Republic Hospitality, who was almost taking a pivot of her own, going to be with her family. And I believe the comment directly was, "Do you know anybody who could fit this crazy role that requires all these different talents and skill set?" And my wife said, "I actually do." And so I started to pick up the interview process from there. And I asked my wife to please don't be involved any further. If this is going to happen, it's going to happen on my own accord. Make a long story short, here I sit today with this incredible pivot from a medical university research institution to now a hospitality group in bars, nightclubs, and restaurants. So here I sit.
There's those common threads, skill sets transfer. I think you're such a testament because so many people struggle with, I didn't have one direction. I didn't, my husband is a doctor. He knew since he was 14 that he would be a doctor. And I think that's unusual actually. And I think so many people struggle with, I've changed careers, I've done all these things. And I actually think they're missing the point, which is you're such a testament to there's a common skill sets transfer. So every job you've done, I'm sure you can look and say, this is where I use this skill set. This is where I use this skill set. This is where I use this skill set. So people shouldn't be afraid of exploring and doing things, just taking that skill set. I love your story, how you've done all these different things from being a DJ to interpretation from the medical doctor to getting their invention out to now in the hospitality. That is also your entrepreneurial spirit. I think that's very common with entrepreneurs. They're not afraid to try things. They're not afraid to do new things. They don't have a societal pressure around being down the certain path. I love that story. So tell me, what are you doing at Republic Hospitality and what makes it so special?
The thing that makes it the most special, I'll start from the top, is that we are a single owner group. And our owner is a testament to doing better for the community and for the people that work here. And so he and I are very much aligned in that way. We have built a culture. And speaking of coming from a different industry, generally in the hospitality industry, specifically bars, restaurants, usually you start in those and continue to make your way through those industries until you get to where I'm sitting today. What has been interesting is I've come in and taken the skill set from a monster institution that runs very systemically and pragmatically. And I've brought in principles to this very different world where I've had employees say, "This is incredible. We would have never done it this way." And while I'm not trying to make a restaurant a hospital, I'm taking principles of it. And so what makes it special is that we are a employee centric organization. There is always going to be an employee first mentality. We're always asking, what do you need? What do you like? What do you want? Many times, as I mentioned earlier, you have leaders or managers better suited to say it better, that will just give directives. What I have found when I start asking questions, like, how do you think we should go about this problem rather than me just say, here's how to solve it? I'll hear a perspective that actually teaches me. And so rather than me just dictate what I thought should have been done for a specific problem, it actually turns around quite a bit when I start asking questions where I'll say, "Oh, my first thought would not have gone there. Let's do it your way, and I'll give you the tools you need to make it happen." So I guess in short, what makes us special is that we are employee centric, driven by one person who is an owner. And so there's not a lot of red tape. We're very nimble, we're very agile, and people who come here stay here and they're very happy.
I love what you said. Doing this a long time, I've seen meaning building businesses and interacting with CEOs and being a CEO. Have seen two types of CEOs. The first type is they come in, they know the clock is ticking, and they make rapid changes, and they don't understand the company, they don't understand what's happening on the ground. The second type is the type that will take the first 90 days and get to know the employees, and they'll ask the employees questions and they'll start to understand the business, which is what you're doing. And those are the CEOs that make the best CEOs because they learn the business, they create loyalty because they're asking the employees for opinions rather than just, operating from the ivory tower. So I love your approach. It's a long-term way to think. And I love that the company is employee centered. It's sort of that Richard Branson method. Take care of the employees and the employees will take care of the guests. And that is so true because everybody focuses on the guest and they miss the middle piece. If you take care of the employees, you're not going to worry about the guests because that is going to naturally flow. I love that you guys get that. And so where Republic sits today, tell me about what's in the collection and the areas and the names of the properties and why somebody goes to these properties or restaurants instead of somewhere else.
This is probably the most exciting topic that I get to talk about. And it's truly become a passion of mine. And so we are currently a 5 unit operation and about to be six. And that's going to happen literally within the next 30 days. Each one of our locations is vastly different from the next, and that is intentional. So we're not a step and repeat company. We're very custom. Our locations range from anything from sushi and caviar to nightclubs and everything in between. The reason for that is we're trying to fill different niches, trying to fill needs within the organization and in the community. And all of our locations currently sit within a 2 block radius of each other. So not only do we get to fulfill a need in a very specific area, we realize a lot of economies of scale. We are, and I hate using acronyms and cheesy things, but we do use a fun acronym, and it's first impressions. Fun stands for first impressions, understanding the customer, and never leaving a customer unhappy. And we keep it very simple. If we accomplish those 3 things, everything else should kind of take care of itself. What follows very closely behind that is culture. And I say that word a million times a day. I truly believe culture will outweigh strategy almost always. Now, you have to have strategy, but if you don't have a culture, if you don't have buy-in, if people don't really believe in what you're doing and what they're coming to work for every day, you're kind of missing the point. And so today, as we sit, we are a growing organization while our competitors are shrinking, and we are fulfilling needs that just haven't been met in the community. The final thing that I'll say is we provide escapes. And I use the word escape quite often with my employees because I think we can get lost in saying we serve drinks and food. And while we do that, what we're really providing is an escape from reality. So if we all have baggage, and when you're thinking throughout the day about your doctor's appointment or an illness or a loved one who's sick, we can take that away from your thought process for a few hours. You come to us to get away from your problems. And so I package this all together and try and put it in a way that my employees can understand. You're not showing up for your shift just to make a few bucks and slang a few drinks. You're giving somebody something special, and that's an escape.
I love that. It's an experience. It's interesting because you said two things that I want to ask more about. One is, we have five and they're all very unique and we're adding a sixth. And what I often find is that when from an operational standpoint, that becomes more challenging for scale, right? If you take one restaurant and you repeat, you have a very simplistic scalable system. Did you guys there's gotta be some challenges in it. How are you guys managing all these unique and I mean, it makes sense they're unique, they're close together, but how are you managing all this from an operation standpoint?
It's not easy. I'll say that. It requires extreme systems, and I think that was primarily why I was brought in. I come from that world of systems, as I mentioned, and as we started the conversation with, I've done this wide array of careers and I've managed teams anywhere from 15,000 down to five. What I've done is been able to take the different systems. Systems always seem to supersede tasks. And
Yeah.
I've identified quickly in my career that if you create systems, you don't have to worry about much. Sports teams do it very well. Your quarterback goes down, next man up, the system continues to go forward. And so I do a lot of podcasts, lots of interviews where I talk about systems and not tasks. So the way that we work is through systems. There is a system for almost everything, and I try and keep those systems simple. And the idea is that if somebody is sick, somebody's on vacation, somebody's put in 50 hours already this week, I want them to go home. I don't want the back to back to back shifts. And the system should continue to go forward. No one person should collapse your organization. And I came in, we are a younger company, I'd say probably about 13 years old at this point. So we're kind of like an adolescent and making that jump into adulthood. And adulthood requires systematic thinking. So the way that we run and the way that I've been able to help continue to make this company successful is by building systems for almost everything, teaching the system rather than the task. And the buy in has been phenomenal. We've actually been able to do more with less people if we wanted.
I love that you got buy-in because I often see, and I want to hear how you did that because I often see a lot of companies right at the apex of where you are and they need, I heard you say, I came from this institutional. I understood very clearly you meant I brought systems and processes and operations to them, but you understood it's not the exact same realm, but you knew how to extrapolate that and make it work. But the hardest part often in this period is to get the buy-in from people. How did you get buy-in?
Number one is I didn't approach anybody as my role. I came in as a friend, as a person, as a customer. So my first 6 months was literally being on site, being a customer, going through the reservation process as a guest would, visiting with my family, coming on the weekends, asking everybody how they do their job and shadowing them for a good portion of their day and truly understanding what their pain points were. Instead of me coming in and even asking, which is one step, asking what the problems were, I wanted to feel it. I wanted to know, does it take you to clean up at night? What do you do when you have a disgruntled employee? And from there, I could then build a base. I had buy in, I had a rapport, and I wasn't doing it just to do it. So, what this is all based on is I had to be sincere. And if I wasn't being sincere and I was just going through these motions in a pretend way, they would have picked up on that. I truly love these people. These people are amazing individuals that work for this organization, and I know they know that. And that was the first piece of buy-in. From there, they understood that I had a true mission. I have no other ambition in my role other than to help people. I'm not in a place in my career where I'm chasing titles anymore. I don't have to work if I don't want to work anymore. And I'm in that very fortunate position. So, what I'm doing now is helping my employees to become better people. There are some of my students who are now my employees because our locations actually sit within a mile of the College of Charleston, where I have taught, and now I'm actually teaching at a few other institutions. But the buy-in came from being real and being sincere.
I love that. That's what we went back to. You said something that really stuck with me. You said, I wanted to feel it. And what that really means is I wanted to walk in their shoes. I didn't want to just operate from a perspective of like, I kind of understand I'm going to implement. And you have such good leadership, Joe, because that's what we were talking about originally is like the CEO that comes in and they actually get to know the employees. They walk the floor, they talk to them, they do the job, they wash dishes alongside them. That earns such respect and loyalty because it says, I'm not operating from an ivory tower. I'm truly operating in your best interest. And that makes sense why you got the adoption because it's very, very difficult to take a company that's been around for 13 years, put systems and processes in place, and get the employees to adopt it. It's generally very, very tough unless you have a good leader. And a lot of times, operational minded leaders don't necessarily think about people leadership. They think about systems and processes, and you have that rare cross section of both. Congratulations, you got systems and processes and buy-in together. Yes. It's like they
You know,
should be very happy to have
I
you.
even crossed the line many times, and I know it. I come in and I go nuts with cord management and emptying the garbage cans. I dive in, and I could care less if somebody's there or not. It's my passion to make us as best looking and presentable for our guests as possible. I'm sure there's been times where our employees have been like, "What is he doing?" I'll be standing on a ladder, grabbing a light bulb, trying to figure out how to fix something. And it's for no other reason other than I need to understand this, because if I'm going to ask somebody else to do it, I better understand what it takes. So I'm probably drawing the line too much, or towing the line too much at this point, because there are times where like, Joe, we got it. Don't worry about it.
Don't do that.
I'd rather I'd rather that happen than the opposite. So yes, it's got to come from a sincere place. People pick up on falsity,
Absolutely.
and if you're not really doing it for a good reason, they know right away. But I think they know I'm in it with them, and I'm here to go.
And what about, as we start to wind down here, tell me what you see in the trend for your company and for that section of the industry. What do you kind of see is trending right now?
Our industry is facing some of the greatest challenges I think it's ever had. There was in South Carolina some tort reform law that was passed about 2 years ago, and it had something to do with what's called joint and several, and so it affected insurance rates to the tune of 300 to 600% in our industry.
Whew.
It forced the industry to identify who was running strong. And what I mean by that is, if you were not running your books correctly, you were not paying attention to the details, you were not running your company the way a company should be run, when you get a hit of 400% increase in your insurance line item, which is usually your biggest line item anyway, you can't take that hit if you weren't running correctly, if you weren't keeping reserves, if you weren't balancing your budget every month. And so we saw 15 of our competitors um, shut down within about a 9 month period. And that was in 2025. We're seeing a change in habits of people going out. We're seeing now in some of our locations for the first time ever, food outselling alcohol. The younger
Yes.
generation just does not drink the same way that my generation did. And rather than sit and complain about that, what I've decided to do is say, how do we pivot? Forget complaining and wasting the energy on, oh,
Yes.
insurance is high and people aren't drinking. Guess we're just going to have to deal with it. No, it's, well, what do we do in response to that? Let's change the way we run our menus. Let's focus on doing things a little bit different. So the industry is, I think, going to come out stronger because of it. But what you saw were the weaker organizations, and I hate using the word weaker, not weaker, maybe just not as aware of what was going on in their business. They had to shutter. And there's been businesses that were around for 20, 30 years that closed abruptly. We not only sustained that hit, but we are growing. We're opening that sixth location and most likely more after that.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, I think when you have a business around for 30 years and they get pretty comfortable, they don't foresee a 30% or 300% or 600%. I mean, that can wipe businesses out very quickly. And, the ones that are running fiscally responsibly and positioned for it do well. So, and it becomes more of an opportunity for you guys because somebody's got to fill that void, right? And so you guys were well positioned, thankfully. You've got good leadership. And it's interesting what you're talking about because I hear this over and over in the podcast where mocktails are now the thing. Like everybody's had to pivot, and even the alcohol companies realize it because they've come out with mocktail, type of juices. And so I love that you said, "Hey, we didn't sit on our laurels. We didn't say what are we going to do. We said how are we going to handle this? What there's always an opportunity, right? So the opportunity is how do you make mocktails? Or I've actually seen a lot of even tea nights now. People go out and do teas here in LA instead of drinks. They get together with friends and they have very expensive, interesting teas, So I'd love that for you guys. What else should we know about Republic? Like where can people find if I'm in the area, how am I going to find out about these restaurants? Where's the best place?
We're very well known locally, and we also lend ourselves to be a tourist destination, being in Charleston, and we're on King Street, which is the main artery of entertainment within Charleston. We are on the best corners. Actually, three of our locations share the first floor of a Hyatt, and they're literally right next door to each other. Three vastly different locations, but they actually share kitchens, share
Oh,
walls.
cool.
Very easy to find us through chats, Google listings. Going to republichospitality.com is probably the easiest. And our social media presence is just simply outstanding, to put it simply. So we are generally easily found, but I don't think people realize the vast nature of what we do, we have pivoted, as we've been talking about, to being an event based company. And so events are the name of the game. And it's not all about just coming to drink, it's about coming to have an event. And that can be a non alcoholic event, a social event, a wedding party, a gal's night out. I mean, we cover it all. We're doing a puppy adoption at Republic
I
Garden
love
and
it.
Lounge this weekend. We have Seaweed in town, which is pet-based, a dog-based event going on in Charleston. So we're constantly looking at ways to differentiate ourselves. But in the grand scheme of things, the way that you can find us is King Street in Charleston and republichospitality.com. And those will get you to where you need to be.
I love it. Thank you so much, Joe. I really loved what you shared. I think there's going to be a lot of nuggets for listeners to understand leadership versus manager versus just the way you get a buy in when you make a big operational change. I think they're going to get to see, they're going to get to learn about Republic. And if they're in the area or already live in the area, they may be going to those restaurants and have no idea how interconnected they are. And tell me lastly, just about the sixth one that's coming. Can you share more about that right now?
Very exciting. Yes. And so we're filling another void in the area. So we are opening up what's called On Air. And there's going to be two levels to it. There's On Air Studio, which is upstairs, and On Air Live, which is the first floor. First floor is a full blown honky tonk. Live music, shot glasses getting thrown at a bell, which is a unique, interesting concept. And then you go right upstairs and it's a studio environment, house music, dance music. On top of that, it has two rooftops. And so very rare to have that in Charleston. And the concept is come and get lost in our space. If you come
Oh,
with a group of 10 and you don't like the first floor, go join us on the second floor. You don't like that? Go to the rooftop deck. And we've done enough data research to know that once you're in a location like that, you can get lost in the space. The music
you're
is
going to
amazing.
stay.
Our food is outstanding and you're just going to stay. And the whole idea is to have that experience and that escape, going back to what we talked about.
Now, did the DJ, the former DJ in you come up with this?
No, this was completely the brainchild of our owner.
Okay.
But again, another way I can relate to what's going on, music plays a huge part in our industry. And I DJ'd for 25 years and I did every event from a 50th anniversary to major festivals. And so I can actually relate when I'm trying to figure out music is so much more than just the music. It's figuring out what the tone should be, what the beats per minute should be. How do we play during the day versus the night, outside versus inside, and even the logistics of making it sound correct. People don't realize you don't just put up a speaker and let it run. It
Yeah,
has to be equalized. You have to take into account density. So that part of my background has helped tremendously in this role.
I love that. Yeah, you do. And I love the other thing that you keep saying, and I know we need to wrap up, but we're almost done here. And you keep saying, we provide an escape. And I am seeing this big transition in hospitality from transformation, from experiential to transformation. People used to want an experience. Now they want a transformation. So if they golf, it went from I'll take golf lessons to make me a better golfer. So we really are seeing this and you're saying like people want this escape, they want this ability. So it's interesting for you. It's people want a moment just to relax and not have to think about what might be going. So I love your perspective is we build escapes for people. They can come and just not worry about anything for a couple hours. We're going to create that experience. So great. I really appreciate it, Joe. You've done such a great job here, and thank you for sharing everything.
I truly appreciate it. And if I can ever spread the word about helping others, these are the greatest platforms to do it on. So I appreciate you also.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I appreciate it. I know people needed a nugget and they're going to find it.